And good evening, MFHL fans. Welcome to episode 17. Well, welcome in to G Show Productions here for the 17th episode of the MFHL podcast. I'm your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. As always, the Manitoba Female Hockey League U18 AAA podcast is brought to you by Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools. To check out their website, visit makecannonfasteners.shop. Visit their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today. They're your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. We're also brought to you by Terrico, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry. Be sure to check out their website for more details about them at terrico.ca. And to Goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service. Be sure to check out their website for more details at gordytomlinsongoalies.ca. Thank you to them for continuing to sponsor female hockey here in Manitoba, in the best female hockey league in the province at the U18 level. And yeah, I mean, we're into the finals. Game one was yesterday. It was absolutely electric. It was the Winnipeg Ice who ended up taking the first matchup, and one that went down into the very end, as the old cliche goes, down to the wire. And we actually have some highlights of this game. We were there on location to live stream it, of course. We'll be live streaming game number 3 as well. But this game started off scoreless through the first period. Be the Winnipeg Ice controlling it in the Westman Wildcats zone. Stephanie Jacob, team captain, loses the puck at first, but regroups, sends it back, ends up getting a pass right here, and snipes it past Danica Averill to score the first goal on the Westman Wildcats in a full 2 games and a period of play, since they shut out Eastman twice to make it to this round. Later on, though, more magic from Jacob. A beautiful move to protect that puck. Not the hardest shot on net, but one that Danica Averill can't control. Meg Farmer puts it in, and the Winnipeg Ice lead this one 2-0 after getting those 2 goals. The Westman Wildcats near the end of the period. Kelsey Hybers brings it in. She's going to spin around to protect this puck. Ends up losing it here, but it would be picked up by a Westman Wildcat. Feeds it to Erica Stutzky. And it would be the Wildcats cutting the Ice lead down to 1 heading into the final frame. Here breaking in, it would be the Westman Wildcats who would tie this thing up. Skinoka scoring her first goal of the series. Westman going crazy. Their fans as well, standing up, getting loud, beating the drums for their squad. And just like that, we got a tie hockey game. We would have to settle this in overtime. However, the first OT would go scoreless. We're on to the second OT, and it would be AP for the Ice, Kay Cairns, who dangles through at first on Hallie Franklin. Franklin has to take a penalty to save a potential game-winning goal, and that sets up the Ice on this power play, where Jacob would work her magic. Lazarenko back on it now, has the puck out of the net, just gets it on the net, rebound created, but no Ice player there in a good position to pick it up. Pounding on the puck on the forecheck, though. The Ice won't quit. Stephanie Jacob dangling in. Jacob tried unloading, but couldn't. Front of the net, now Jacob scores! The team captain of your Winnipeg Ice fans, plays clutch tonight. And the team captain for the Winnipeg Ice finishes it off in double overtime for her second goal of the game. It would be Jacob's 8th of the postseason, extending the Winnipeg Ice's playoff winning streak to now 16 games. Absolutely remarkable. Given that, of course, they didn't lose any games in last year's championship run, they now improved to 7-0. It's Westman's second loss only of the playoffs. They fall to 6-2, and yeah, like you can see here, and as we just showed, that's how the scoring went period by period. And speaking of Stephanie Jacob, had a chance to connect with her this morning, talking about that game, what the postseason's been like, and you know, just I guess not reflecting, but you know, just asking her a question about, you know, what this season's truly been like for her, having one of the most remarkable ones out of any player in MFHL history in a single season to this point. It's going to be great to connect with Stephanie coming up next in this pre-recorded interview here on the Manitoba Female Hockey League U18 AAA podcast, presented by Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Goaltenders, and Terrico. Stephanie Jacob, Ice Captain, number 9, coming up next. The captain of the Winnipeg Ice, of course, Stephanie Jacob, joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Stephanie, we'll start off with what was a thrilling game one of the championship series last night. A battle between, of course, your Winnipeg Ice and the Westman Wildcats. They end up taking it to OT, goes to double OT, and you end up scoring the game winner. Take me through what that moment was like.
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard fought battle right through the whole game. I mean, pretty close teams between us and Westman. I think we both play pretty similar games. So, yeah, it was definitely nice to close out the game in OT and get a pretty exciting goal. But yeah, it was kind of just a lot of relief to finally get the game over with, and we got to go home with a win. So yeah, it was nice.
Obviously, a lot of people stepping up last night for this Winnipeg Ice team in terms of raising their level as things went along, but no one did it better than you. 2 goals, 1 assist. Talk about for yourself what it's like playing in these games. Does it, make you feel like you play that much better when the pressure is on?
Yeah, I think that the environment is definitely just super fun to play in, and I think that everyone loves playoff hockey and just the whole atmosphere of the crowd, the coaches, the teammates. It's just so much fun, and yeah, it's I think pretty easy to bring your game to another level in playoffs.
This is the third straight year that you girls are facing off against this Westman Wildcats club. Obviously, the rosters have changed throughout the years, but still some players that you've played against before in previous finals. You girls know this Westman Wildcats team very well. You've had battles against them all season long. Do you expect, every single game coming up here to be similar to yesterday, where it's going to be neck and neck between you two on the scoreboard?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, but obviously, I think yesterday was a pretty good example of how close we are with Westman. So I think no one would be surprised if all the games are pretty tight like last one.
This Winnipeg Ice team is also riding a 16-game winning streak in the playoffs at this point. Remarkable. I mean, this streak could end at some point, but speak about what that's been like as a group, bringing that consistency night in, night out throughout these past 2 postseasons to be able to have this type of streak.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of just comes down to bringing that sense of playoff hockey. And I mean, we play all season to build up for playoffs. And I think that just we've done a really good job of executing what we've kind of worked on throughout the whole season and just bringing it to playoffs every game and bringing everything we got.
This season, this time around, last year there were a lot more blowout wins for this Winnipeg Ice team. This season, it's been a lot more closer games that this team has had to win. I spoke to your coach Eugene about this, I believe in the last interview, but a bit different how it's been done this year. But this team ends up finishing a spot higher in first place. So, how huge was it, in your opinion, from a player's perspective, to be playing in so many close games and being able to win them this season, leading into the good habits in the playoffs, of course?
I think that it's definitely made things a little bit more interesting throughout the season, and like no games are just handed out. You have to bring everything you got every game to win, and I mean whatever team shows up to play is gonna go home with the win. So I think it kind of just helps you go towards playoffs, and I think it kind of helps you learn to deal with a little bit of adversity because it's always going to come in playoffs. And so, yeah, I think it just kind of helps out if anything.
This is your final season with the team. You started off with this team back in 2021, 2022. In terms of the journey, I mean, finishing off with these girls, does it make it that much more, I guess, motivational to, want to win this championship specifically, knowing that there's a chance to go back to back and especially a chance to get some redemption potentially in the West Regionals?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely thinking back on all 3 years with the team. It's been so much fun and just such an enjoyable experience. And I think that, our first year we made it to the finals, but didn't come out with the win. And last year we did come out with the win. So I think that everyone's pretty motivated to come out with the win again this year. And it would just be an unbelievable way to end off my ice career.
Yeah, and of course, as the old cliche goes, got to take it one game at a time, which of course you girls are taking this approach. Like I'm sure the Westman Wildcats are. A huge game 2 coming up this Saturday in Hartney, back to back, with a game 3 coming up on Sunday night in Winnipeg. The travel to Hartney from Winnipeg or wherever these teams travel from, it's always, such a huge advantage. It should be on paper for Westman in terms of how long the bus ride is. Talk about, what that type of challenge is going to be like going into Hartney on game 2 on Saturday night, which should be a pretty loud atmosphere, looking to put this team in a 2-0 stranglehold.
Yeah, I actually don't mind the bus ride to Hartney. I think it's kind of fun, get to spend a bit extra time with my teammates before the game. But yeah, I think we just kind of gotta try and get our legs moving a bit before the game, maybe stretch out a bit more after the long bus ride. But yeah, I think we'll be okay with it.
For yourself, Stephanie, you've had one of the most remarkable seasons I've seen of any player in the MFHL throughout my time covering it. You win top forward, top scorer, league MVP. You led the league in goals, points. You're leading the playoffs in points and goals at this point. To finish it off with a championship, I mean, it would be so special for you. But talk about what this whole season's been like, the journey, the hard work to be able to do what you've been able to do in your last season with the ice.
Yeah, it's been a really fun season. I think that um, it's been really good. We've had like a lot of mixture of we have a core group of returning players from last year, but then we also have a lot of new rookies that are new to the team this year. So I think it was a good challenge to try and mix those two groups together, and I think we've done a really good job of it. And yeah, it's been a really enjoyable season so far.
Well, I mean, no doubt about it. This team has come together to, continue this winning streak that is at 16. Of course, this Winnipeg Ice team taking one game at a time. They'll be back in action coming up on Saturday night in Hartney. We'll have game 3 for you all on gshow.ca on Sunday night. Until then, though, Stephanie, good luck, best of luck in the upcoming game on Saturday, and can't wait to broadcast your team, the Winnipeg Ice, coming up this Sunday night.
Thank you.
And Stephanie Jacob joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Great to hear from the captain. And by the way, game 2 is not Saturday evening. Had that wrong thinking off the top of my head. My bad on that one. But yeah, score there once again. And yeah, game 2 will be going 2:30 p.m. Saturday, March 23rd, at Hartney Arena in Hartney, Manitoba. We'll have game 3 for you all on gshow.ca, on G-Show Productions on Sunday, March 24th, at the Scotiabank Hockey for All Center. Game 4 and game 5, still to be determined if those are going to be played depending on what happens in these next 2 games. If the Wildcats are able to win one of these next 2 games, there will be a game 4 on Hartney on Wednesday in the next week on the 27th. Follow or check out the MFHL U18AAA.com website for all the details going on with the Championship Series. Part 3, of course, of the Westman Wildcats and the Winnipeg Ice facing off against each other. Westman, of course, swept the Ice back in 2021-2022. Winnipeg returned the favor last year, sweeping them, and of course, 16 straight playoff wins. Pretty remarkable. But for the Ice, no matter what happens, if they lose a game, their ultimate goal, not looking to extend that streak to an impressive 18, but looking to bring home a back-to-back championship this season. Once again, apologies to this next guest in Kelsey Hybers. Just realized I spelt her name wrong. in our promos. So we fixed that. Gonna cut to that right now, and then shortly after, we're gonna bring on number 10, the other captain in this series, the captain of the Westman Wildcats, making her return to the MFHL podcast. She was a guest on the show earlier on in the year. Now she joins me once again, talking about what the journey's been like getting to the finals, what the loss was like last night for the team, and looking ahead into the upcoming games this weekend as the Ice go down to Hartney, one of the toughest places to play in the MFHL, as it's been said. With the atmosphere and just the great game day experience down there, kind of tough for opponents to come in and win there. But Winnipeg Ice aren't just another opponent. The number one team in the league. Kelsey also speaks about them and just the consistency they've brought throughout this season and how tough it's going to be to beat them if they don't bring their A game for a consistent 60 minutes. So all that great stuff coming up now. Up next here on the MFHL podcast, brought to you by Mechanic Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Kelsey Hybers joining the show next in this quick transition afterwards, after we show you guys this promo coming up, this updated promo screen we got. And it's the team captain of the other side of things, talk to Stephanie Jacob. Now we're talking to Kelsey Hybers, number 10 team captain of the Westman Wildcats. Kelsey, a tough loss last night, going to double OT. Of course, not the way you girls would like to start things off, but talk about, game one, what it was like playing in the finals once again for the third straight year.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Definitely a change from what like the last two rounds were like. Going into that game, like it was definitely a faster pace, harder competition. They're a very stretchy team, so we just had to like adapt to that. But I thought we managed well. I thought it was a close game. I thought it could have went either way. So yeah.
Yeah, and must give you girls a lot of optimism, knowing that this is only game one, right? Obviously, the next game, if the Ice, take it, it'll put you girls in a hole. But having the series coming back to Hartney on a Saturday afternoon, looking for a big bounce back, how huge is that to have it in your home barn coming up this Saturday?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously we're just hoping to bounce back from last night. It's hard to come back from being down too, so we're hoping to kind of balance things out and get the momentum in our favor. So yeah, it'll be nice in our own barn too with our home fans and home refs and last change and whatnot. So hopefully we can, yeah.
Yeah, any advantage you can get against the number one team in the league, right? Like the Winnipeg Ice is definitely huge. It's been a close season series too, even though they ended up winning it 3-1. There were three one-goal games in there. Both of these teams match up against each other very well. What's that like for yourself as a competitor, knowing that no game really is going to be easy here in your final series as a Westman Wildcat?
Yeah, it's definitely fun, like being in playoffs, kind of like knowing that every game you have to like bring everything you can and put everything you can on the table. Um, it's the like fun of it, knowing it could go either way, and it just depends on who's willing to like put it on the line and battle to the last minute. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and of course, it's the third year in a row that this Western Wildcats team makes it into the final. There were obviously a lot of ups this season, but at times this team struggled, got hot in the second half of the season. Only one playoff loss leading up into the series, but you know, no game was really easy heading in, right? Like the Pembina Valley Hawks give you girls a tough 3-game series where you sweep them. Eastman gets their first one of the season against you girls in that game too, but you were all able to bounce back to shut them out 2 games in a row. Talk about what the journey's been like this year leading up to this finals to get back to this point.
Yeah, honestly, at the start of the year, I'd say we had a slower start. Like we had a fresh team, lots of rookies, lots of new girls. We were learning to play with each other. I feel like the turning point for us was really probably that like Wilcox tournament in Regina. We ended up like last, and from there on out, we just kind of started clicking and like growing and started like learning to play well with each other and like got the chemistry going and whatnot. And I feel like just from there, like systems started working, we started getting better and climbing to the top. So I feel like that's really helped us. And coming to playoffs too, like it's always like a different compete level, and I feel like we really learned to like adapt to that and use it to our advantage as a team. So yeah.
Yeah, and of course, a younger team compared to last year to this year. Great that you girls were able to really find your game after that Wilcox tournament. But your goaltender this season, and Danica Averill, ends up getting pulled for the first time in the playoffs in that 4-1 loss against the Eastman Selects. Tony Franklin decides to go with Kylie Hack in the next game. She comes away with a shutout, then goes right back to Averill in that game 4 that ended up clinching it. With Tony being in his first year, I mean, speak about what's been like, I mean, from a player's perspective, to just see that and be a part of that, that he really does trust every one of the players on this year's team.
Yeah, it's nice. Obviously Tony's a new coach, new to everyone, new set of perspectives and coaching styles. So it's nice having him on the bench and like feel like I've got to learn a few new things and just get those different perspectives. Um, Again, what you said about using everyone and like I feel like Tony's a coach who really like uses all four lines. Like our team doesn't really just rely on like one line or like one girl. Like, I feel like all of us have our jobs to do. And I really like how he like rolls the lines and like uses everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that scoring by committee has also really come through in these playoffs. Marley Rutherford leading the team with 5 goals, but then Callie Hillhorst from the back end with 4, Carlin Goods with 4 goals, yourself with 2 goals, 5 assists. Of course, so much of this team's success has come from the good defense this season, but also coming from that elite depth that this team has. To see it come through in the playoffs, I mean, must be really huge for this team, knowing that that's kind of the MO of what the success has been like and come from this year.
Yeah, for sure. Even like when we're down, knowing that we don't even just have to rely on one girl or like put all the pressure on one girl's back, knowing that everyone knows how to do their job and can be relied on in tough situations is really handy and like necessary in games like this and situations like this, I think.
From what I've watched so far, I mean, you're going to disagree with this and give credit to your teammates, but for me, you've been the most impressive player from just what you've been able to do with the puck of this postseason with this Westman Wildcats team. It's been a great honor to be able to watch you honestly see the things you've been able to do throughout these playoffs. Talk about how, I mean, obviously playoffs kind of change in a way, it gets more physical, the game gets tighter. How you've been able to, maintain your level and still, dangle when you feel confident with the puck, stuff like that. How huge has that been to know that you can translate your game over into the playoffs from the regular season once again this year?
Right. Yeah. Just like how the speed and intensity gets faster in playoffs, like I feel like just knowing that I have good sets of forwards and like reliable D like with me when I'm on the ice, knowing I can rely on them and like use them as support when I have the puck and stuff and like how we've gained chemistry together. I feel like just knowing I have them by my side really helps in situations where like I can't always like skate the puck in myself and I kind of need that extra hand. I feel like that really helps just knowing that I have girls around me who are reliable and consistent.
Right. And I mean, relying on your teammates has gotten you some pretty good points so far. 5 assists, 2 goals for 7 points in 8 playoff games so far. Yeah, I mean, this team this season obviously went through the ups and downs. Like you said, the Wilcox tournament was the low point for the team, came out of that. Now you girls have your backs up against the wall again in a way, down 1-0 to the Winnipeg Ice. This is a team that's on a 16-game playoff streak. I don't know what their feeling is like, if they feel like they're unbeatable, but they're going to bring their best, their laser sharp focus, most likely coming into game 2 with a team that's been riding such momentum like the Winnipeg Ice. What do you feel is going to be the huge key to finally get one on this team and to potentially tie the series heading back into Winnipeg on Sunday night?
Yeah, for sure. They're obviously a really strong team with lots of structure, um, consistent in almost every game they play. So I think honestly, the key for us is just having everyone going, everyone doing their jobs. Like I said, not just one person showing up and scoring the goals, but having everyone being reliable and putting pucks in the net, everyone doing their job, doing what they can to support each other and stuff. I think that's the key for us, honestly.
Well, no matter what the series score is, we'll be there to broadcast game number 3 on Sunday night at the Hockey for All Center here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's Kelsey Hybers, number 10 of the Westman Wildcats, her second appearance here on the MFHL podcast for this season. Kelsey, best of luck to you and the team coming up this weekend in the back-to-back in Hartney and then coming back to Winnipeg. And Kelsey Hybers, number 10, team captain of the Westman Wildcats, joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Kelsey is under a point per game, just that, in the MFHL right now. In terms of the playoffs, or playoff point totals this year, 2 goals, 5 assists in 8 games played. That top line of her, Reese Schutte, and I believe Ivy Perkin, as it was last game. That was the line combination that Tony Franklin rolled with. A dangerous line if you give that line opportunities. Something that Eugene Kaminsky obviously is very aware of, that this Western Wildcats team not only has that line that could beat you, but many others. Both these teams, I'll use Eugene Kaminsky's words, mirror images of each other. Pretty much, as he said that, and I couldn't agree more. Last night, I mean, the Winnipeg Ice, they usually outshoot teams. They outshot Westman by quite a bit, but Westman was getting into shot lanes. Danica Averill had a fantastic performance last night. Ended up giving her player of the game. I mean, 41 saves on 44 shots against. That's what was on the board. Like, incredible stuff from her in her debut in the MFHL Championship Series, and expect for Westman to be potentially coming back with their best effort of the postseason coming up this Saturday. You'd have to imagine that. It's got to be their best effort, because if you get down 2-0 against this Winnipeg Ice team, I mean, chances are you probably don't come back, because of how good and how consistent they've played game in and game out all season long. But yeah, we're going to throw it to another transition. Once we come back, I'm going to be showing you all the updated stats leaders in the stats categories in terms of who's leading the playoffs in points, goals, and assists in the top 5 in those categories, as well as showing you all of the goaltending stats from all goaltenders in this year's MFHL playoffs. You're not going to want to miss it. It's coming up next year on the podcast, the MFHL podcast, episode 17, brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Terraco, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry, and to goaltenders, as you just saw on your screen from most of that Kelsey Hybers interview, your goalie's personal video review service. We'll be back in just a moment here. Well, welcome back, everybody. Not going to take too much longer in this edition of the MFHL podcast. We're planning to roll another one out next week. Who knows, by the time we roll out the next episode, we could be seeing a back-to-back champion here in the MFHL, depending on how the next games go here. This back-to-back coming up this weekend. Saturday afternoon at Hartney Arena in Hartney, Manitoba, 2:30 p.m. Game 3 goes on Sunday, 7 p.m. The Ice could very well be champions come Sunday night. But if not, if it goes to Game 4, that'll be played on Wednesday, the 27th, next week in Hartney. And then no games past April in this league. Game 5, if it does come to that, Sunday, March 31st at the Hockey for All Center, but of course, as the graphic says, that is subject to change. Follow along for all of the playoff stats on MFHL at U18AAA.com, and also check them out here on gshow Productions on this podcast, as we always show you guys what's going on here. In terms of the stats leaders, Stephanie Jacob was 2 points back of the points lead yesterday, heading into it. Maya McGregor and, of course, Hannah Ray can't register any more points since they were eliminated against the Ice in the semifinals, with Winnipeg sweeping them. But yeah, Stephanie Jacob with a fantastic performance last night, a 3-point night. Now leads the MFHL in points by just 1 over McGregor and Hannah Ray. Look for those totals to continue to go up if the Ice continue to have success in this series. As for the goals, too, I mean, feel like her name's been at the top all season long, in the regular season at least. It took a while here, but Stephanie Jacob now leads the MFHL playoffs in goals. Carlin Goods is, I guess, second in terms of remaining active players in terms of her totals. But as you can see there, McGregor, also, of course, Marley Rutherford leading the Wildcats in goals with 5. Carlin Goods, of course, there. And really impressive, Abigail Brigg. Still in this top 5, 4 goals in 3 games played in that first round sweep loss against the Westman Wildcats. As for the assist leaders, Brianne Compte, she's been fantastic, producing offense from the blue line during these playoffs. She's now up to 6 assists, leads all D in points, goals, and assists. Or not goals, sorry, but in terms of points and assists. Isabella Mann also on this list now, as well as Annika Russell still here rounding out the top 5. And then as for the goaltenders, Laura Melissa now leads all goalies in wins for the time being. One less game played than Danica Averill. Averil's save percentage pretty darn good at .919, but Laura Melissa's almost at another level, really. .947. That was at .952 before that game yesterday. 3 shutouts so far. I mean, besides Jacob and the offensive contributors like Laura Melissa, quietly potentially sneaking her way into the conversation of being the playoff MVP. One playoff MVP for the Ice in terms of their individual awards they gave out back in 2021-2022. Took a backseat last year, of course, playing as the backup. And this season, of course, getting all the starts pretty much so far in these playoffs, except for Game 2 when Bailey Grunwald ended up playing in net against the Central Plains Capitals in that series. But yeah, obviously the Winnipeg Ice kind of highlighting all these point totals. And I mean, for good reason, they're 7-0 now in the playoffs. They now have the most goals for, or they're tied for that with the Westman Wildcats. They've only given up 8 goals in 7 games so far, which is just spectacular. The consistency has been there all season long, and it's translated over into the biggest stage, which is the playoffs. By the way, said this last night on the broadcast, but that Winnipeg Ice PK was perfect throughout that semifinal series against the Yellowhead Chiefs. Last night, of course, Westman got one on the power play, but for the most part, the Winnipeg Ice, their penalty kill was smothering, was all over them, and at one point, forget off the top of my head, I think it might have been in overtime or in the third period, the Ice, there's this one time where it was the Wildcats power play, but Winnipeg was all over them, putting up about 3 to 4 shots on Danica Averill and hemming them in their zone. So yeah, it's a team that can play great defense, that can drive good offense no matter if they're at even strength or down a girl in the box. Winnipeg proved their championship caliber last night, and it's up to Westman to answer back. Westman, like I said, I mean, did a pretty good job of keeping Winnipeg to the outside. Winnipeg, throughout the game had most of the offensive zone possession when it came down to it, but Westman's still doing a good job of playing that stifling defense, playing a really good defensive system to keep the ice to the outside. Just the overall skill from the ice showed out and was a bit too much for the Wildcats last night, but this is only the first game for them, right? And to take a team to double OT, I mean, you were close with them. You were close to beating them at the end of the day. It all matters. It doesn't matter, though, depending on what happens in game number 2. You need to keep up the same type of consistency. And yeah, if you don't come away with the win in game 2, you're going to be in trouble against a really good Winnipeg Ice team. But for Westman, continuing to get into shot blocking lanes, that's what they were doing really good last night. Gotta find more consistency in terms of offensive zone time and maintaining a cycle to try to hem Winnipeg in there and more than you were last night. So yeah, stuff that Westman needs to clean up, but they were close with this Winnipeg Ice team last night, and will look to raise their level coming up this Saturday in Hartney, Manitoba in the afternoon coming up. So yeah, we're going to throw it to another transition, then I'll be back for some final words here on this edition of the MFHL podcast for episode 17 here on gshow Productions. Well, you made it to the end of the MFHL podcast for episode 17. If you enjoyed this one, everybody, be sure to turn on notifications and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future uploads of this podcast. Next episode, for episode 18, is coming out next week. Might be our penultimate episode, not too sure yet, as the season is coming to an end here very soon in the MFHL. We're down to 4 at most possible games to be played. Could only see 2 more games. So yeah, it's been a fantastic season. The road to the SO Cup, of course, continuing with the Winnipeg Ice up 1-0 in this series. 16 game winning streak in the playoffs. Pretty incredible stuff. Westman looking to cut into that series lead and tie it up at 1 apiece. Coming up, of course, in Hartney, Manitoba Hartney Arena this Saturday coming up. Be sure to check out the Westman Wildcats on YouTube, as they'll be streaming that game. G-Show Productions will have Game 3 on tap at 7 p.m. on Sunday night at the Hockey for All Center on the Flynn Arena. If you can't make it to the game, we got the broadcast free to watch for all of you to tune into, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you to our sponsors in Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico and Goaltenders, for sponsoring this edition of the MFHL podcast. Thanks to Kelsey Hybers and to Stephanie Jacob for coming on and being the guest in this week's episode. More to come next week, of course. Be sure to tune in this Sunday. It's going to be an absolutely epic matchup, no matter what happens in Game 2. No matter what the series score is, both these teams, no matter what, going to battle in every single one of these games. Should be neck and neck. Can't wait to call it here on G-Show Productions. But until then, until I see you next time here on this podcast, everybody, I've been your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and saying so long. For all you March Madness fans out there, try to keep your sanity in terms of the brackets busting already. Hopefully those brackets end up looking better than mine at the end of this tournament. But yeah, in all seriousness, folks, have a great, wonderful rest of your week. Have a great weekend, a safe weekend as well, and enjoy all the great hockey coming your way this weekend. Coming up, MFHL fans, in a doubleheader, Game 2 and Game 3. Can't wait to call it on Sunday. Take care, everybody. Peace out.